All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're tackling one of the absolute most intimidating challenges in the entire art education ecosystem, the memory drawing constraint. Now, if you're gearing up for the Maharashtra State Board of Art Education's elementary or intermediate grade examinations, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Today, we're basically setting up the ultimate masterclass on conquering this very specific exam constraint. We are going to take that awful, familiar feeling of staring at a blank piece of paper and transform it into a highly structured process of rapid, confident recall.
I want you to really picture this for a second. Could you draw a crowded market or maybe a busy family picnic completely from memory in just 2 hours? Seriously, think about it. This is the exact core problem students face. You're sitting right there in the exam hall, there's no reference photo, no model to look at, the clock is ticking loudly, and bam, that familiar exam panic starts to set in. How in the world do you visualize and execute complex shapes when time is working entirely against you?
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the memory drawing challenge. Second, structural secrets for speed. Third, building your muscle memory. And fourth, nailing the final exam. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The Memory Drawing Challenge, Understanding the Stakes.
Before we can hack the system, we really need to understand our parameters. And that number right there, that illustrates the absolute biggest hurdle you face: 2 hours. For both the elementary and intermediate levels, you're given exactly 2 hours to reconstruct an entire scene strictly from your internalized visual library. There is literally zero time for second-guessing yourself here. Speed, when paired with accuracy, isn't just a nice bonus. It is an absolute necessity if you want to pass.
Now notice how the difficulty ramps up between the two levels. In the elementary exam, your task is drawing 3 to 4 figures in a simple, everyday setting just to establish a basic compositional balance. But when you make that jump to the intermediate level, the stakes go way up. Now you need 4 or more figures, and you have to show dynamic movement, natural body language, plus a complex sense of foreground, middle ground, and background depth. This is exactly why your structural speed needs to evolve. You're doing significantly more work in that exact same 2-hour window.
Moving on to Section 2, Structural Secrets for Speed, or what I like to call the visualization hack.
Okay, so if we actually want to beat that clock, we have to entirely shift away from trying to copy static references. Instead, we need to master something called kinetic construction. This is it. This is the absolute key, the ultimate visualization hack. Instead of desperately trying to remember the exact outer outline of a person walking, you build the figure structurally from the inside out using highly simplified geometric shapes. By visualization of the human body as basic 3D blocks, you can rapidly construct natural figures in literally any pose, from any angle, completely without a reference.
Let's break down the 3 foundational anatomical rules of this kinetic construction, because these are what allow for that lightning-fast visualization. First up is the kinetic axis. Just think of the spine as your central line of movement. Its natural curve dictates the angle of both the ribcage and the pelvis. Second is simplified volume. You've got to break down the torso and limbs into simple boxes, cylinders, and spheres. Think about it. A ribcage is really just a box, an arm is just a cylinder. And third is skeletal alignment. This is the secret sauce that brings realistic rhythm to those simple, blocky shapes.
To make this super practical for you, let's look at a very specific trick for the upper body. The clavicles, your collarbones, function almost exactly like a bicycle handlebar, tilting as the arms move up and down. If you just visualize these handlebar mechanics in your mind during the exam, you can map out shoulder movement and upper body balance in a matter of seconds. It totally saves you from struggling to figure out why an arm looks like it's unnaturally glued to the torso.
And for the lower body, here's another massive time saver. Just remember that the femur, the thigh bone, angles slightly inward from the hip down to the knee. Keeping this single skeletal alignment detail in your head instantly establishes a natural, grounded stance in your figures. It totally stops your characters from looking stiff and robotic, and it gives you an incredibly reliable structural baseline that you can draw rapidly.
Section 3, Building your muscle memory through daily speed training.
So we've talked a lot about mental visualization, right? But now we really need physical execution. To make sure your hand automatically keeps up with your brain under that exam pressure, the curriculum resources point to a daily, 3-step physical training regimen. This is designed strictly to build up your rapid recall and your hand control. Step 1 is gesture sketching. Step 2 is line and shape drills to improve your line quality. And Step 3 is continuous line drawing. Let's look a little bit closer at a couple of these. Step 1 is honestly arguably the most important. You absolutely need to practice 2-minute gestures. You literally set a timer and force yourself to capture the overall movement, weight, and balance of a pose. And you have to ignore the fine details completely. No faces, no fingers. This is vital because in your memory drawing exam, if you can't capture the essence and the energy of a scene quickly, you are going to run out of time rendering pretty details on a figure that fundamentally looks wrong.
Another incredible tool here is continuous line drawing. This is where you sketch without ever lifting your pen from the paper. There is a massive psychological benefit to doing this. It forces your eye to constantly connect forms and spatial relationships, and even more importantly, it quiets that annoying inner perfectionist. It stops you from endlessly erasing and redrawing the exact same line, which, let's be real, is the #1 killer of time in any exam setting.
Now, if you want to dive deeper into these perceptual training exercises, the academic resources actually highly recommend these texts. Books like Vasudeo Kamath's Sketching and Drawing are widely celebrated for teaching students how to prioritize observation and simplicity over rigid, complicated formulas. And E.G. Lutz's work? That's just fantastic for mastering those simple geometric guidelines we were discussing earlier.
All right, bringing it home with Section 4, Nailing the Final Exam. Let's look at execution and grading philosophy.
So all this speed training we've talked about is great, but we really need to align it with what the examiners at the Maharashtra State Board of Art Education are actually looking for. Their grading guidelines directly state that they value a clear idea over decoration and spontaneous sketching over meticulousness. Think about that. That elegantly justifies our entire strategy for today. The examiners simply do not want slow, labored, obsessive perfectionism. They want to see that you can rapidly and spontaneously communicate a memory using solid structural fundamentals.
When we compare what actually scores points on these exams, it's incredibly revealing. High scores consistently go to correct proportions and balanced compositions. A simple, well-executed drawing will absolutely always beat a complicated but confusing one. Low scores? Those are typically handed out to students who waste their precious time on heavy shading and overly complex elements that don't add anything to the clear idea of the scene.
Because of this, you have got to avoid these common mistakes that consistently derail students year after year. Do not overcrowd your drawing space. Never ignore your fundamental proportions just so you can start shading. Avoid using way too many colors unnecessarily, and above all, avoid poor time management. Keep in mind, if you plan to eventually take the aac-CET entrance exam for visual arts degrees, that specific memory drawing practical is only 90 minutes long. Not 2 hours, 90 minutes. So mastering this efficiency right now is absolutely critical for your future. So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. What daily scene will you memorize today? The real key to moving from that blank page panic to rapid recall is to start applying these structural and visualization techniques immediately. Don't wait. Look around you right now, break your environment down into basic geometric shapes, and train that muscle memory. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.